Have you ever noticed how fear has the power to paralyze you at the exact moment you need to move forward? How many opportunities have slipped through your hands because insecurity spoke louder than your courage? This video isn't just another reflection. It's a call to break free, once and for all, from the invisible chains holding you back. Because today, I'm going to show you how to overcome fear and transform your life into a journey of prosperity, courage, and abundance. Stay with me until the end, because every word you hear here could be the key you've been missing to unlock your destiny. Fear will always try to convince you that you're not capable, but the truth is, it only exists because you already have within you a potential greater than you can imagine. To overcome fear, you must understand that it's not the end, but merely a sign that there's something new to conquer. Tip 1. Learn more. Fear always shrinks in the face of knowledge. When you understand what seemed threatening, you realize most of it was just an illusion. Tip 2. Practice more. Everything you repeat becomes natural. What once seemed impossible turns into routine when you keep exposing yourself to it. Tip 3. Celebrate every result. Fear weakens every time you acknowledge your victories, even the small ones, because they prove you can go further. Don't let criticism or praise define who you are. When you live for others' opinions, fear finds room to manipulate your choices. Learn to silence the need for approval, because prosperity doesn't come from pleasing everyone, but from following your purpose. Change how you view failure. It's not an enemy, but a teacher preparing you for greater heights. Every time you fail and learn, fear loses its grip. Because there's no failure for those who turn every fall into a lesson. Never feed thoughts that don't lead to growth. They're like seeds that grow into fortresses of fear in your mind. Protect your mind like the most precious soil of your life, because it's from there that both the fruits of courage and the weeds of fear grow. Replace fear's seeds with seeds of faith, confidence, and hope, and you'll see your life begin to flourish naturally. Don't let misguided religious experiences distort your mind. Fear of God isn't true reverence. It's a flight that distances you from the source of power. Understand that greater is He who is in you than any circumstance around you. This awareness creates an inner strength that destroys all fear. Don't fear what you don't understand. The unknown often seems enormous, but when you dive into knowledge, you discover it was just a shadow. Don't believe more in external threats than in the internal promises. Prosperity comes from the conviction of trusting what you carry within. Transform your relationship with money. Many fail to prosper out of fear of risk, and it's this fear that keeps scarcity alive. Never take on debts that steal your peace, but don't fear commitments that propel you to grow. Prosperity requires the courage to expand. Remember, you've already overcome many fears in your life. If you once feared crossing the street and now walk without thinking, that's proof that what was once giant becomes small with growth. This is evidence that every fear can be conquered as you mature. Fear tries to nest in your mind, but you don't have to let it stay. It may land, but it doesn't need to remain. Every time fear tries to settle in, confront it with action, because action is the language that destroys paralysis. Don't wait for courage to act. Act even with fear, because it's through action that fear dissolves. Don't let the fear of death steal your life. Life only has meaning when you realize every day is a chance to fulfill your purpose. The early Christians faced arenas without fear because they knew there was something greater. That awareness must live in you today. When you understand there's nothing to fear because life is more than this fleeting passage, you begin to prosper without limits. Fear has silent siblings that drain your energy: inertia, procrastination, disorganization, and negativity. Identify where each of these forces operates in your life and break the cycle with firm, conscious decisions. Don't accept procrastination as a lifestyle. It's delay disguised as comfort. Organize your mind finances and relationships because prosperity demands clarity and order. Don't shy away from responsibilities. Fear of action is what keeps stagnation alive. Turn every excuse into a decision, every insecurity into movement, every doubt into faith. That's how fear is defeated day by day. Fear creates isolation, but you don't have to live alone. Prosperity manifests through connection and multiplication. Surround yourself with people who strengthen your courage and avoid those who feed your insecurities. Replace the habit of complaining with the practice of gratitude. Gratitude destroys fear's atmosphere and makes room for abundance. The more you give thanks, the less fear you feel, because gratitude expands your awareness of how much you already have. Use fear as a compass. What scares you most is often the sign of the path that will make you grow the most. If something gives you butterflies, it might be the very door to your prosperity. Don't hide from opportunities that seem too big. They're where you discover your true strength. Don't fear starting small. Every great empire began with simple, courageous steps. Understand that prospering isn't the absence of fear, but the conscious choice to move forward despite it. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding that fear won't own your life. Keep your eyes on the future you want to build. When your vision is clear, fear loses its power to distract you. Fear always tries to steal your vision because it knows a focused mind cannot be stopped. So, keep your mind full of purpose, your mouth full of gratitude, and your heart full of courage, and you'll see fear vanish like smoke. Prosperity doesn't come from the absence of challenges, but from your ability to face them without being paralyzed by fear. Fear is a liar that whispers you can't do it, but every time you act, you prove to yourself it was a lie. In the end, the secret isn't to eliminate fear entirely, but to learn to use it as a springboard to leap higher, because fear only exists to show you're facing something that matters. Fear is one of the most silent, yet most destructive forces that resides within humans, and for this reason, we must face this reality head-on, understanding how it operates in the brain and how we can transform it into fuel for progress instead of letting it become a prison that paralyzes us. From an early age, we learn to fear situations, to create invisible barriers that prevent us from living fully. Yet, we rarely stop to reflect that most of the fears we carry are not rooted in reality, but in imagination and ignorance of the unknown. The brain is designed to protect us, and when it identifies something that seems dangerous, it triggers signals that make us retreat. The problem is that this mechanism doesn't distinguish between what could truly kill us and what merely appears threatening. As a result, many people live trapped by mental barriers that never truly existed. The fear of the dark, the fear of flying, the fear of exposure, the fear of failure. These are all examples of how the mind creates traps that limit our lives and prevent us from exploring new horizons. Ignorance is one of the greatest triggers of fear, because the less we know about something, the more our mind fantasizes, invents risks, and creates narratives that imprison us. It's like the first time someone boards a plane, the heart races, the mind imagines disasters. But when you understand that air travel is one of the safest modes of transportation in the world, logic prevails, and fear begins to lose its grip. The same happens when we face any new challenge. The first time is hard. The second still feels uncertain. But as we repeat the experience, the fear diminishes until it disappears completely, showing that it was never greater than our ability to adapt. The environment also profoundly influences how we deal with fears. When we surround ourselves with insecure and fearful people, we automatically inherit that atmosphere. But when we connect with courageous individuals, we learn that courage is equally contagious. The story of Gideon and his 300 men is an example of how fear can eliminate people from a battle before it even begins. When God asked the fearful to return home, thousands gave up, leaving only those ready to win. This shows that great achievements cannot be built alongside those who feed fear, as the insecurity of some can contaminate the destiny of many. For this reason, courage must be a daily choice. Fear also has a magnetic quality. It attracts exactly what we dread most. When the mind fixates on an idea, whether positive or negative, it generates vibrations that draw similar experiences. If you fear failure, your mind will seek out signs of failure in everything, and sooner or later, you'll create situations that confirm that fear. But if you channel that same energy into envisioning bold achievements, this magnetism will work in your favor. The mind is like fertile soil where thoughts are seeds, and fear is the seed others try to plant in you. It's up to each of us to choose what we allow to grow within us. How many projects have been buried because someone close said it was too risky, too impossible, too dangerous? How many dreams were never lived because someone planted the seed of fear in your heart? Fear is often an emotional inheritance, passed from parents to children, from generation to generation. But you can be the one to break this cycle and reprogram your mind to see life as an adventure, not a constant threat. It's crucial to understand that no one gets out of this life alive, and if that's the only certainty we have, it makes no sense to waste the opportunity to live intensely because of fears that never materialize. Life is an adventure, and if we're going to depart one day, let it be after we've dared, explored, conquered, and left our mark, rather than having been prisoners of fantasies that never came to pass. The fear of cancellation, for example, has destroyed the minds of many. But the truth is that those who have the courage to stand up even when everyone points fingers discover that no one can bury someone who chooses to stay alive inside. Cancellation is like a funeral where everyone seems to give up on you. But if the dead person rises, the funeral loses its purpose. So it is with those who face rejection and refuse to be buried by others' opinions. The key is realizing that fear only has power as long as you feed it. In reality, it's not a wall, but a shadow. And when you decide to walk through it, you discover there's room for an entire life on the other side. Every decision expends energy, so the brain tries to conserve it. But it's precisely in difficult decisions that an extraordinary life is built. Because every bold choice opens doors that would never have opened if you'd stayed in the comfort of inertia. This is why so many give up. They wait to feel ready, when in fact readiness comes after action, not before it. It's not the absence of fear that defines winners, but the ability to act despite it, to embrace vulnerability, to accept that insecurity is part of the process and still move forward. When you understand this, fear ceases to be an enemy and becomes an ally, showing you the boundaries of your comfort zone and pointing to the exact places where you need to grow. And each time you cross a boundary that seemed impassable, fear diminishes, confidence grows, and your life expands until you look back and realize that what once paralyzed you now seems too small to be called an obstacle. So, if you feel fear today, see it as an invitation, not a prison. Fear exists only to show you the next door you need to open. And when you open that door, you discover that life wasn't against you. It was just waiting for you to have the courage to cross through. This is the first step of the trilogy, transforming fear from an enemy into a teacher, from a prison into a path, from a weakness into a strength. Only those who learn to tame their fears can live a life without limits. There comes a moment in life when fear becomes so pervasive that it begins to dictate the course of our choices. It's precisely at this point that we must learn to decipher it, because fear is not just a feeling, it's a mental construct born from ignorance of the truth. Fear is fueled by a lack of knowledge, by the absence of practice, by the scarcity of results. That's why the more you expose yourself, the more you take action, the more you seek to learn, the less room fear finds within you. Many confuse fear with reverence, but they are entirely different. Reverence is deep respect, an acknowledgement of something greater, while fear is flight, a desperate attempt to hide. It's what made Adam run after the fall instead of remaining in God's presence. The Creator didn't ask Adam what he had done, but where he was, showing us that the real issue isn't the mistake, but the distance we create from the true relationship that could heal, align, and lift us up. The root of fear stems from this disconnection. When we stop showing up before the source, we start believing in false voices, distorted thoughts, and insecurities that grow into giants in our minds. Those who wish to govern their own lives must mature, because immaturity breeds childish fears that we carry into adulthood. Until we overcome them, they continue to determine how far we grow. The fear of criticism paralyzes, the fear of not being praised imprisons. And the key lies in understanding that both criticism and praise are merely external perceptions that cannot become the fuel for your journey. If you grow accustomed to depending on what people say, whether positive or negative, you'll live oscillating between the prison of approval and the slavery of rejection, neither of which is compatible with a full life. The secret is to neutralize the weight of both praise and criticism. When you realize that neither defines who you are, you begin to walk in freedom, guided by internal convictions rather than fleeting applause. The mind is like fertile soil, and ideas are seeds that can grow into towering trees. But if you're not vigilant, you'll allow foreign seeds to be sown in your field, stealing space from what truly matters. Fear is one of those toxic seeds. It contaminates, distorts, and weakens. Many remain trapped by it due to misguided religious interpretations that make them fear evil more than they trust the power within them. Those who know the presence of the Holy Spirit understand that no force of darkness can touch their lives, because greater is He who dwells within you than any force that rises against you. This understanding uproots fear. Many believe more in curses, spells, and external threats than in the thousands of promises of victory declared over them, and so they live enslaved to an illusion that prevents them from moving forward. When you understand that all things work together for the good of those who love God and walk in His purpose, you realize there's no room for living in fear, because even adversities become tools for growth and transformation. Even in the financial realm, fear paralyzes. Some fear committing to growth, but the truth is that progress requires calculated risks. The problem isn't debt itself, but the type of debt you take on. A debt that pays for itself, generates fruit, and multiplies resources is not an enemy, but a tool. Meanwhile, a debt that crushes, humiliates, and imprisons stems from a lack of strategy and the childish rush for results without a foundation. Fear is the voice of immaturity that hasn't grown up. Just as you once feared crossing the street and later overcame it, there are areas in your life that still need this same growth process. The secret lies in planting the right seeds and not allowing birds to nest in your mind. We can't prevent fleeting thoughts from trying to land, but we can stop them from staying and becoming strongholds. Every fear that takes root is like a nest built inside you. If you don't destroy it, you'll carry limitations throughout your life without realizing that the power to expel these invaders has always been in your hands. The greatest fear of all is the fear of death, because we believe it's the end. But death only touches someone if God allows it, and those who live under His purpose don't need to fear what hasn't yet come. If the early Christians faced arenas, wild beasts, and torture without denying their faith, it's irrational for us to be trapped by fears so small in comparison to what they endured, yet remained steadfast to the end. You cannot prosper while carrying fear, because fear breeds invisible siblings that silently consume your destiny. Siblings named inertia, procrastination, disorganization, omission, negativity, uncertainty, lies, excuses, and loneliness. Inertia keeps you still when you should be moving. Procrastination steals the precious time that never returns. Disorganization causes you to lose resources that could generate abundance. Omission condemns you to never act when you should. Negativity turns your mouth into a source of murmuring that poisons your days. Uncertainty paralyzes decisions, lies destroy trust. Excuses justify failures, and loneliness traps you in isolation. All these forces are children of fear, and until you face them head-on, you'll remain bound by invisible chains that drain your energy and prevent your life from becoming full. Fear creates a mental atmosphere where everything seems harder, heavier, and more unattainable. But when you decide to break this cycle, you realize the reality wasn't as frightening as it seemed. It was just the distorted lens of your mind. Brazil, with all its natural wealth and potential for prosperity, remains limited by a collective mindset of fear. Until we break free from this, we'll continue to squander enormous opportunities. Many carry the fear of not being valued abroad, as if foreigners were inherently more important. But the truth is that everyone has the same mental structure, and the difference lies in who dares to believe in themselves. When you realize there's no structural difference between a Brazilian brain and an American one, you see that what separates us is only belief, and belief can be transformed by choosing to abandon fear. Fear is a silent thief that steals dreams before they even have a chance to be born. Those who feed this thief will never live the extraordinary. The key to defeating fear lies in replacing its roots with unshakable convictions, which only happens when you expose yourself to knowledge, practice until it becomes natural, and reap results that prove you are capable. You won't overcome fear by running from it, but by facing it head-on, understanding that it only exists because you haven't yet seen your full strength, potential, and purpose. So, from today onward, decide not to live a life governed by fear. Fear may knock at the door, but you don't have to open it. It may whisper thoughts, but you don't have to embrace them. It may try to take root, but you have the authority to uproot it. And if there's one message you need to engrave deep in your mind, it's this: fear only survives where it's permitted. When you decide to stop allowing it, it simply vanishes, because it was never greater than you.